Your lecturer is Joel Sartori. Mr. Sartori is a photographer, a speaker, an author, and a regular contributor to National Geographic magazine. His assignments have taken him to some of the world's most beautiful and challenging environments, from the Arctic to the Antarctic, and he has photographed everything from Alaskan salmon fishing bears to Amazonian tree frogs. Mr. Sartori has published several books including Rare, Portraits of America's Endangered Species, and he and his work have been the subjects of numerous national broadcasts, including National Geographic's Explore, NBC's Nightly News, and a PBS documentary titled At Close Range with National Geographic.
Well, hi everybody, and welcome to the travel photography series. How about that? We have 6 beautiful lessons for you. We're going to be looking at everything you're going to possibly run into in terms of travel photography. I wanted to remind you that for those of you who took the Fundamentals of Photography course, my big 3 in photography, anywhere you go, traveling or not, great light, great composition, and something interesting. Above all, something interesting. So where have we gone? Well, we're on the National Mall here in the nation's capital to start out here today, but we have been everywhere from horses on the beach at sunrise. We've seen the view from the top of a historic lighthouse and a cathedral. We photographed people on the beach in really tough light and in beautiful light. We tried to think of just about everything. We've gone down below the earth into a cave. We photographed in a garden maze. We've even gone camping and roasted marshmallows and tried to show firelight. So I've really tried to think of everything I possibly can to really give you guys a good sense of what you'll run into when you're out taking great pictures, better pictures than ever. Now I want to set one other thing up for you, and really, here's a big disclaimer. We're going to use friends of mine for this course. We really don't want you to think that National Geographic sets everything up. We do not. If you're on assignment for National Geographic magazine, that is photojournalism, and we're not setting anything up. But for this course, I wanted to slow it down. I wanted to use people in a way that we could really stop and explain techniques to you. Really craft it for you. So we're gonna use friends of mine mainly, and you'll see that we're really posing. But you know what? You pose your friends and family members all the time when you're on vacation, don't you? Why not pose them for good? Make really well-crafted pictures with your friends. You'll be able to do just that after you get through watching this 6-part course. So let's get started. So if you come to Washington, D.C. and you're on the National Mall, you're gonna wanna go to all the big monuments and memorials, aren't you? Of course. And I'm standing in front of one of the best. It truly is. It's the Jefferson Memorial. I mean, it is lovely. I've been here a number of times over the years. I think the man was a great man, and every time I go, I read every word in there, and I'm amazed somebody was that smart. I love it. It's a kind of a sacred place to me. Now, having said that, forgive me for saying this, I don't think it's the best place to shoot. And let me tell you why. If you can see back there, you see the stature of Jefferson. He's tall and he's very dark, and boy is it contrasty in there. Just speaking purely as a guy who wants to make good pictures. It is really tough. I mean, outside it's pretty neat. It's a grand building. It really is. And there's people coming and going. And I've taken many pictures here over the years. Going inside, looking out. I've taken pictures of the big columns with little people, and people sitting on the benches with the words of Jefferson above, and people on the stairs, as you see now, and people running around it. And it's lovely. It's great. But the star of the show, Mr. Jefferson, the statue himself, he is in the center, and he is tall, and he is dark, and he is surrounded by big vertical openings that let in the sky. Why is that bad? Because we're talking contrast here. Your eyes are very able to see into both shadow and sunlight in the same view. Not so our cameras. Not so. Our cameras can handle basically one level of exposure, plus or minus. So what do? Well, you get silhouettes. If you don't use a flash, and if you do use a flash, it might look pretty harsh, won't it? You could wait till the end of the day. There's maybe a 10-15 minute period when the ambient light, the man-made light inside the memorial matches the very low twilight outside. That's fine, but what are you going to get? You're still going to get this big, tall, dark statue in the middle of a white room. That's pretty tough. That's pretty tough. So there's plenty of pictures you can get. Postcard pictures. You can be across the tidal basin looking back at the paddle boats as they go around. Just a classic look. That picture has been done a million times. I've shot it too. I'm not that interested in doing something that people have done over and over again. I want to put my own spin on it and make it interesting. So what to do? I tell you what, this might be a case where the answer is no. And the question is, should I stick around to work this? I don't know. It's up to you. But for me, I would rather move on and look at other memorials and monuments that are lending themselves more freely to the kind of photography I want to do in very subtle light, to say different things about these great people that we're lionizing here. So I think I'm going to wander around and bring you with me and look at some of the other places on the mall and really how to put our own stamp, our own photographic signature on some of these very well-known places. Before we go back into the field, let's stop for a minute and really think about this. This is kind of tricky, isn't it? Going beyond the postcard. How do we do that if we go to places where a million other photographers have gone before us? How do we do something original and interesting? It is tough. I've been all over the world for Geographic, and I've been to DC a number of times. This is the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's probably one of the reasons you're taking the course. So let's talk. You know, I've been to DC a number of times over the years. In fact, the first time I ever came to DC, it was my audition for National Geographic, believe it or not. I had to go around and try to photograph these very famous places on the mall and get pictures that were truly outstanding. And well, I didn't do too well at the start. I had an airplane wing through a picture, and I had a shot of the Capitol in kind of dreary light, and what to do. I was really afraid I was going to fail, starve, and die in that order, so I found myself going across the river to get back. Out of desperation, I didn't know what else to do. How do you make the Washington Monument look new and different? I went across the river and got it very, very small at sunrise, and there's a lovely hiking and biking trail on the other side of the Potomac River. The monument becomes part of the scene, and now we're talking, now we're getting at something. We're trying to move beyond the picture of record that everybody else does that gets off the bus and looks at these places. And then I got a little closer, kind of a medium shot, very powerful. Here's a runner in gloomy light. I worked this thing all day. A runner going up past the monument, kind of a show of strength in silhouette. It's very mysterious in a way. I thought, well, there's some meaning there. There's some meaning there. And then I thought, okay, now the lights are coming on the monument. This glow from all the floodlights, very beautiful. It's the right time of day. That little sliver of light comes in from ambient light. It matches the light that's put on the monument by the floodlights, just about 10 minutes or so when those two light sources balance out. Okay, that's good. Now what? How about putting people in there for scale? Look at how small they are. This is a big monument, isn't it? It's big. So mission accomplished. These were pictures that helped land me a career at National Geographic in part. Nothing great about them, but at least they move me beyond the obvious. I say that all the time, but that is a key phrase in my head. Is this special? Is it interesting? Is it worth taking a look at? Well, maybe. These are pictures that you wouldn't see in postcards, so that'll work. That'll work. Now let's go to a place like, let's say, Rome, Italy, and we're going to look at the ruins. What to do? I mean, most of us would go there. We're just traveling around for fun, and we would maybe get up when it's quiet early in the morning, and we would take pictures of them, but you know, they are stones, and they're very ancient, and they're very quiet, and what do we do here? What do we do? People are not really allowed to walk through them. How do we make them sing? How do we make them different? Well, maybe you think, okay, I'm going to get some birds flying past them, and that's fine, and that's okay, but maybe we go back a little later when the light gets more subtle and the moon's coming up. Maybe that's it. I don't know. This is tricky though, because a lot of people get stuck in a rut. They really do. You get stuck in this rut where they don't have people in there and they're satisfied with their pictures. But you know what? Without having people in there, without having animals, something animated, I tell you, things can get a little quiet. They can get a little boring. Now maybe you go to Mount Rushmore and you show it in the beautiful pink light of dawn. That's okay, it's a beautiful, beautiful place. But is it enough? Is it enough? All these places I'm showing you, I try to shoot them beyond what you're seeing here. It could be a cemetery in Normandy. Very lovely, you can show it in light, you still have a little direct sun there. You could show it after the sun sets. That's fine. These are clean canvases with no distractions. And for some people that will be enough, but it is not enough for me. I want to see more than just South Beach, Miami, framed by palm trees, or some bridge lit at night. I want to go beyond that, and I want to push you to as well. Is it more difficult? Yes, it is. But let's talk about that a little bit more. Now I go to Rio, and I rent a helicopter, and I fly around the Christ statue on the mountain. It looms, it's world famous, it's iconic. Now look at what I'm doing here. I'm using all the techniques and tricks I have. I'm talking leading lines of this statue. It leads you down to the base of the mountain and beyond. I'm talking about moving all around it. We're talking about rule of thirds. Divide that picture up into grids, basically, and you put that statue up in one corner. Okay, fine, and then you see the landscape fall away to the right. You see it fall away to the left. I'm really working this. What can I do to make this different and make it sing from the air? What can I do that goes beyond what everybody else has done? There are many helicopter companies kept employed just circling tourists around this thing at dawn and dusk and all hours in between. Well, finally I settled on this. It's just a little helicopter shadow right on the chest. Maybe that'll do it. It's different. I've never seen it before. Maybe that'll work. It's at least putting my own stamp on something. How about something like the Eiffel Tower? This is a biggie, isn't it? Huge, enormous. What to do with that? It's been photographed 100 million times at least. Well, maybe we try worm's eye view. Remember, bird's eye view looking down, worm's eye view looking up, and 360 degrees, look up, see what you can see, and then back up. Just like I did with the Washington Monument, back up. Look, people doing something interesting. I'm telling you, if you can get people into the scenes, it will up the value of your pictures and it will make them more interesting to look at because people do the most amazing things. We've kept it quiet in this lesson, but I really want you to start thinking about pushing yourself. People give objects scale. They make things come alive, and it's well worth pushing yourself. After all, that's what this course is about. That's why you've got the course. So come along with me. Let's go back out in the field now and see how we can use people in real life. So now we're at the Lincoln Memorial, and it is a lovely building. It's my favorite on them all, actually. It's epic. But it's late in the afternoon, or getting late in the afternoon, and that sun's setting west, and we're looking directly into it when we try to make a picture of Abe Lincoln's statue from outside. The light's very, very harsh, and yet this is the time that I have to make pictures. What to do? Are we skunked? Are we gonna shoot like the tourists and just shoot right into the sun and get something nasty? No, we're not. The way to fight harsh light, if this is the only time I can be here, is to go inside where the light is beautiful and subtle and lyrical, and that's the time to go in and work around and really see what we can do. Get out of that harsh light and go in. That's the key. Don't fight it, work with the light you have, right? Okay, so our video permit does not allow our video cameras to come inside. I'm gonna go inside there and shoot stills though, that's perfectly all right, and I'll come back and show you what we got. All right, so I looked around, I took pictures, and it was really awesome. Believe it or not, the light can be terrible out here, but indoors, man, it's lovely. It's like the place was made for really nice photography. So what do you see when you go in? Well, you see big crowds, kind of get your bearing. Pretty much everybody that's in there, it's mostly tourists and school kids, they're all doing the same picture over and over again, and that is, they are just going right up to the base of the statue, getting a picture to send home, and that's pretty much it. They proved they were there. But you know, if you stop and look around, you can make pictures of them taking pictures, which is kind of fun, everybody with their camera up. Now what's really fun to me is to move off to the sides. That's when you get really interesting pictures, believe it or not, because nobody shoots that way. Look around on the internet, see what you see. It's just the same picture of the Lincoln statue over and over and over again, actually, or from outside. But back there in the shadows, off in the sides, in the corners, that's where you see the good stuff. Seeing that statue from the side, he's bathed in beautiful light. It's really, really an elegant shooting situation. You don't even have to work to craft the light. It is handmade for you. If you stop and think about it, make sure you shut off your flash in there, no flash, and just shoot natural light. and stand still and look at all the great human behavior. We have people being very reverent, reading the text on the walls. We have people trying to think about where to go for pictures in some cases. People are in there thinking just like me, but mostly it's just people standing and looking up with their mouths open. I even did a little detail shot of the statue in a lady's reflective sunglasses. So several really nice frames, just walking around in a place that millions of people visit every year. Millions of people go there, but you don't see these other types of pictures until today. That's all it takes, guys. Just think a little bit. Take your time, be patient, and think. One of the things I wanted to talk to you about, especially if we're at a very crowded place, very touristy place like the Lincoln Memorial, how do you isolate a friend or a loved one out of a crowd? How do you really bring them forward so that they read and they're not lost in all this chaos and visual confusion? How do we do that? Well, Claire is standing here and she's going to help me illustrate this. One of the main reasons I have a little 28 to 300 millimeter zoom is to do just that. I want to zoom in not just to get closer to something, but to clean up my backgrounds, to really isolate the things that I want to show off, like Claire here. So the combination of focal length plus aperture get me a clean background. What do I mean by that? Well, I mean, the closer you zoom in, the less is in focus in the background. And the aperture, the hole in the lens, a big hole in the lens, it not only lets more light in, but it also blurs the background. A small hole in the lens, you get lots of depth of field. So we can start out shooting to illustrate this just with a wide angle here, 28 millimeter. And no matter what my aperture is on, I pretty much see the world around us, and the stripes of the stairs going up, they kind of stand out. It's not a very pleasing picture. Let's try this. Let's zoom in a little bit, and we'll experiment with apertures right now. So we'll start out at like f16, and I see people in the background, they're nice and sharp. Now we're gonna open that aperture up. We're gonna make the hole in the lens very, very big. Make it as big as we can. This one goes to 5.6 when it's zoomed all the way to 300. But when we're doing this, zoomed at 300, even with a 5.6 aperture, there's nothing but a smooth palette of color behind her. So this is really a nice solution, especially if you want to travel light. I could use a big lens like I use for wildlife, 200 to 400 or a 5 or 600, but that's too much to carry if we're just out having fun, we're on vacation, we're traveling. This is a nice solution for that, and it really does isolate friends and loved ones very, very easily. So let's talk a little bit about the mechanics of how we make pictures that are different from everybody else's. If you're like me, you travel around the world or around the country and you go to the places that everybody else goes. And there are more cameras on the streets every year. How do we make genuinely interesting, distinctive, and unique images? This is the question. Well, let me take you there. Let's go to St. Lucia. I was there on assignment for National Geographic Traveler a few years ago. Very beautiful place, very exotic, just gorgeous. You have these mountains called the Pitons. They're right along the coast. And most people, they'll just get out of the bus, the tourist bus, or out of their rental car along a road that's very close, and they've cut down some of the trees for great vistas for pictures, and they'll snap a picture and they'll get back in their car and that's it. Well, that doesn't cut it if you're working for National Geographic, and if you're taking this course, it doesn't cut it either. You want to do something more than that. You want your pictures to be special. So just put on your thinking caps a little bit with me and say, what should we do? Well, I'll tell you what I did. And this seemed to be a pretty good solution and one I hadn't seen before. I rented a fisherman's boat. It didn't cost much. I bet it was 20 bucks for about an hour at sunrise. What I loved about this boat, I had my pick of boats because a lot of these guys weren't fishing, it wasn't the right time of the year, is I chose one with a very colorful front end because I knew if nothing else happened, I'd have that red as a character. I use color as a character or a point of interest in the photographs. All right, so we get out, we're motoring along, we're at about the right distance. We're not right up against the mountains because we wouldn't be able to see them very well. We're back a ways. That's another important thing. If you're trying to photograph something big, get back. Wouldn't you know it, a couple kids come up on basically a surfboard, photograph them there. They ask if they can come in the boat. We say sure. They get in the front end of the boat. We take some lovely pictures in very subtle light. What do you know? We're all of a sudden putting together a shoot of pictures that are interesting because they have people in them, and that adds some excitement, some action, and maybe a little mystery. Look, these kids are looking off, very enigmatic. What are they looking at? Do they see something we don't? And that color, that rich color, Again, good time of day, really lovely, subtle light. That's what makes this picture work. But also you've got nice, strong foreground color. You've got something going on with the kids, and there's the object. There's the target in the background, those pitons, but you basically use the pitons as a background, not as the primary thing. All right, that's one way of doing it. Now let's go to Red Square in Moscow, another very famous place, millions of pictures taken there a year, very beautiful, historic, but how do we do it? What do we do? Well, kind of a similar fashion. I'm going to start with an overview. I want to see the place. I think that's something that you should think about too. So I go to a hotel nearby. They've got a restaurant on the top floor. Great. Okay, here we go. There's Red Square, there's the Kremlin off on the right. But what else? Well, let's frame it up any way we can. That restaurant had a very reflective surface. My wife's legs, a purse. All right, so we're trying to work it. We're trying to get at something. Is it the world's greatest picture? No, but it's kind of fun. And it's a way of personalizing it, putting something in the foreground. Again, Red Square kind of becomes the backdrop. So let's go down into the square now and see what we can get. Well, of course, you're looking at the basilicas here with the onion dome top and the really lovely, very historic architecture. Again, lots and lots of color, and we're there at a good time when the light's fading, and that's fine. But I hung around there for about a day to make pictures in between other things I was doing. And you know, around Red Square, you see some really interesting stuff as well. More interesting actually than the buildings to me. There's guys there that actually rent out eagles that they put on tourists' shoulders for pictures. Or they'll rent out monkeys. You can literally hold a monkey in an outfit and get your picture taken. Well, that is interesting to me. That works. That's something that really, truly, something I've not seen before. How about that? It just is a matter of looking, going behind the scenes to really try to capture whatever you can. Let's go to another place that's very often photographed, the desert Southwest. Whether it's Utah or Arizona, the rock formations there are fantastic and very colorful. But they're always photographed how? In bright sun with blue sky, white puffy clouds, like something out of a John Wayne movie. Well, I like to take it beyond that. You know, I'll go in the spring when the weather's inclement and maybe they have some rain showers. Get some people out there hiking around, in this case a Boy Scout troop, hiking around on these rock formations. They're all in very colorful parkas or raincoats. It's quite interesting because they give you a sense of scale. Without people or animals or a car or something in this scene, you'd have no idea how massive this place is. These formations are enormous. They dwarf anybody out there. So what else? What else can we do in the desert Southwest that really is different and intriguing? Well, how about this? Kids that are just burying themselves up to their necks in red earth. That speaks to the place. We know it's down there because of the color of the soil. That'll work. By the way, in all these pictures you're seeing, you know, these are just things that I found. I put the time in, I drove around, I kept my eyes open. These are not setup shots. These are things that actually were going on. That really is a great way to do it. And I dare say it's better than posing everybody everywhere you go, because how interesting is that going to be? You're going to be limited by what your mind comes up with, aren't you? Same with a place, let's say, Monument Valley. The classic shot is to get off the bus and there you are, and the spires are there, and it is very beautiful. But that's a shot that millions of people have done. How about if you get in your car and you get back? You get a ways back and you find a jewelry stand. And you can frame up the front of that area with the jewelry. These kids aren't seeing any cars. I would have loved to see a car or truck on that road to give us a little bit more layering there, but there's no traffic, and so they're just playing ball. But we found a way of actually framing up Monument Valley there, just with their jewelry stand and with them playing ball. It's all right, and it's layered, and it's nice, and the light's appropriate. You notice these aren't shot in the middle of the day unless there's clouds. These are shot when the light is nice. So, lastly, let's go to one of my favorite places in terms of rocks and geology, Delicate Arch. Wow, that's a beautiful place, isn't it? And this is how most people shoot it. They hike to the arch, they pose their family members in the arch, and they get a picture of this basic formation. People holding hands or standing there. That's fine, but let's back up. Let's back up. Wow, that's where the arch lives? I didn't know that. I'd never been able to find a picture showing the whole bowl where the arch sits. That puts it in context. And then I hang around there a little bit. and I wait for the light to get good. I'm up there many hours waiting for this. You have to have a patient, tolerant family if you're traveling with friends or family. And I wait till a beam of light cuts across that arch and the shadows help define it further and little people are walking around. That's it. That's it. It takes work, doesn't it? It sure does. Now, it does take effort, but that's why if it were easy, everybody'd do it. But you know what? It actually is easy. It just means committing to something other than making sure you have breakfast at dawn and dinner at sunset. You're gonna have to miss meals once in a while. You're gonna have to get up very early. You're gonna have to work late. But that is really what separates good pictures from great ones. Up here at the Lincoln Memorial, I've been waiting all day for this. Look at this, it's magic light. The sun has gone behind the clouds. It looks like there's a storm coming in. I've been waiting for this. Look at this. Lincoln is lit up and there's still enough ambient light in the sky to light up the crowds, and it is packed. It is absolute bedlam, bedlam. There's airplanes coming in right on the final approach to National Airport. Tons of people crowded around, and I love it because it gives us lots and lots of characters, lots of chances for action in the stage, up on the steps, the statue. I'm gonna shoot this two ways. I've got this wide angle telephoto here. I can show the whole building with this, and it's very nice. I've got this on a very high ISO. It's 4000 ISO. With the aperture wide open, big hole, so that I can hand hold it. When a plane comes over, I'm gonna shoot that. But until then, I'm gonna use this 200, 400 right here. This is a big, big, big lens. And what I'm gonna do is show this both in a quick frame and a slow frame. I wanna do a time exposure. This is a 2-second exposure. Why? Because I wanna show people moving and blurred. Now here comes an airplane. Let's try that first. I'm all set with my exposure. It's gonna look good. I'm all set because I know he's gonna come by. I'm gonna kind of frame this one off the side. There we go. Very nice. All right, that's great. Now, I wanna get back to this. I'm gonna shoot this two ways. I'm gonna shoot this with a wide open aperture, f4, on 100 ISO in this kind of darkness, on a tripod with a cable release to keep it steady. I don't want the camera jiggling. At a 1/10 of a second, this is gonna basically give me people that are mostly still, not moving, and Lincoln is just glowing up inside. This is the perfect 10 minutes of the day to get this. The other thing I wanna do, I'm gonna make that lens I'm gonna have it a tiny aperture there. F32, 6-second exposure. 6 seconds, everything's gonna be blurry. It's just gonna be swirls of color. And then I'm gonna bracket from there. I'm gonna open up to F18. This gives me a 2-second exposure. I'm gonna do a few like that. I'm gonna open up to a 1-second exposure, a couple like that, and finally a 1/2-second exposure, a couple like that. And all of it's really, really interesting. The goal is to have Abe Lincoln sharp with the dance of life going all around him. It's perfect, it's just perfect. And the later it gets, the better this looks because the whole building's gonna glow up. So this is really, really the time to shoot this, in my opinion. Either that or at first light, 5:30 in the morning, 6 in the morning. It's a lot more fun to come here now because of tons and tons of people. Here comes another plane. Quite awesome. This is the key thing, you guys. Your bus tours are gonna take you to a place and drop you off at noon. You're gonna have from noon to 1 to shoot this, and you're gonna miss it. You must book trips, you must travel when you can work the edges of the day, not the middle of the day. Sure, we can defeat bad light in the middle of the day, but do we want to? Why not shoot when the light is beautiful? People say, how do you get these pictures? Oh, they look so pretty. Well, it's because I take the time to research, do my homework. I know that this is the time of the day to be here for so many reasons. And I'm here now, and I'm not worried about getting dinner on time. I'll eat after it's dark. That's that. You get great pictures when they're available to you, when they present themselves to you. You have to work and be there at the right time. It just takes thought and a little research. That's all. So now you've seen several examples of how to make interesting and different pictures at very famous places. So what I'd like you to do is go beyond the obvious. Go to a local landmark or a very famous one, national landmark, and try to make a picture that speaks to you and that other people haven't done before. Look at what we did at the Lincoln Memorial. Reflections in sunglasses, time exposures, crowds flowing down the steps. You can do these things too. Just put on your thinking cap, and the next time you go to a place that you think is worth recording, don't just get off the bus and take the picture. Go beyond the postcard. That is your assignment. Get something worth looking at that nobody has ever seen before. Good luck.
Your lecturer is Joel Sartori. Mr. Sartori is a photographer, a speaker, an author, and a regular contributor to National Geographic magazine. His assignments have taken him to some of the world's most beautiful and challenging environments, from the Arctic to the Antarctic, and he has photographed everything from Alaskan salmon fishing bears to Amazonian tree frogs. Mr. Sartori has published several books.
We try to think of just about everything. We've gone down below the earth into a cave, we photographed in a garden maze, we've even gone camping and roasted marshmallows and tried to show firelight. So I've really tried to think of everything I possibly can to really give you guys a good sense of what you'll run into when you're out taking great pictures, better pictures than ever. Now I want to set one other thing up for you, and really, here's a big disclaimer. We're going to use friends of mine for this course. We really don't want you to think that National Geographic sets everything up. We do not. If you're on assignment for National Geographic magazine, that is photojournalism, and we're not setting anything up. But for this course, I wanted to slow it down. How about that? We have 6 beautiful lessons for you. We're going to be looking at everything you're going to possibly run into in terms of travel photography. I wanted to remind you that for those of you who took the Fundamentals of Photography course, my big 3 in photography, anywhere you go, traveling or not, great light, great composition, and something interesting, above all, something interesting. So where have we gone? Well, we're on the National Mall here in the nation's capital to start out here today, but we have been everywhere from horses on the beach at sunrise. We've seen the view from the top of a historic lighthouse and a cathedral. We photographed people on the beach in really tough light and in beautiful light.
Including rare portraits of America's endangered species. And he and his work have been the subjects of numerous national broadcasts, including National Geographic's Explore, NBC's Nightly News, and a PBS documentary titled At Close Range with National Geographic.
Well, hi everybody, and welcome to the Travel Photography series.